everybody. So I didn't prepare slides or anything. I thought it would probably be most useful for this to be kind of a Q&A session. So I'll just talk briefly about my office. You're probably already somewhat familiar with us. So we handle the immigration work for the entire Duke enterprise. So health system, university, med center, everybody. And for the entire population. So students, scholars, faculty, postdocs, of course, nurses and doctors throughout the health system. So we have our hand in all sectors of Duke. And we handle not only the visa process, but we also do part of the payroll processing for any foreign national employee at Duke. So you're going to deal with us both for your visa questions and for at least some of your payroll issues as well. And we have a number of advisors in our office, and the way we've broken up the workload is we have different departments assigned to different advisors. So you should probably know who your advisor is. That's probably the person who signed your DS 2018 or who you worked with on your H-1B application. But if you ever have questions, you can always just contact our office, the main number, and we'll direct you to the appropriate person, depending on your department. So with that, if there are any questions or specific things that you would like me to address, I'm happy to do so. Molly, did you say you got some questions before that maybe I could address?
We got one question, and it is it possible to apply for a second J visa with the same sponsor?
Yeah, so what I think they're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if you can extend a J1 program. So the answer to that is yes. So if you're a postdoc at Duke, most likely you came in on the J1 research scholar category. So you can be here for up to 5 years in that category. So most postdocs come in with just a 1-year DS 2019 because that's typically what your contract has, and it's that's what your PI has guaranteed funding for. So your visa documents are also tied to that. But if you came in for 1 year, you've got an additional 4 years theoretically that we could extend your program, as long as both you and the PI are interested in doing that. For J1s, extensions are very easy. You don't have to leave the country. You don't have to go back to the consulate and get a new visa stamp. We can do it all while you're here, and it's very quick and easy. The key thing is that the advisor in my office just needs to know about the extension before your current DS 2019 expires. After the expiration date, we cannot extend you anymore, and so at that point you would have to leave and then come back in on a new program. And we don't need a huge amount of advance notice. If you just give us, we ask for a couple months. Sometimes last minute decisions are made. So even if we have a couple weeks, it's probably still enough time to process the J1 extension. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, please clarify and I can address it better. Anything else? You can either ask or you can put it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
Now, a big one I hear is, how can I get an H? Isn't an H the path to the green card?
Yeah, so I hear that one a lot as well. So yes, if your long-term plan is to remain in the US and to get a green card, then you definitely do want to be in H-1B status. And the reason for that is that the H-1B is what's called a dual intent visa. So even though it's a non-immigrant visa, you can still pursue permanent residence or immigrant status, and that's not a violation of your status. That is not true for the J1. So if you were in J1 status and you are applying for a green card, then it is risky to travel internationally at that point or to apply for a new visa because you could be denied entry or be denied a visa since you have demonstrated immigrant intent by filing a green card application. So yeah, so definitely it makes sense to move to the H-1B if you are interested in getting a green card. But moving to an H-1B requires that your PI be on board with that because they have to pay for the H-1B. So many PIs like the J-1 because they're free. H-1Bs is going to require, a financial commitment of approximately $3,500. So that's a conversation that you'll want to have with your PI. The other part is that if you're now on a J1 and if you are subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, you are not eligible for an H-1B unless you either fulfill that requirement by going home for 2 years or you get a waiver of that residency requirement. So it's not only convincing your PI, it's also getting a waiver before we can actually file an H-1B. So it's going to require some advanced planning, and it's going to probably take a while.
Thank you. So the first step is to talk to the PI because the PI sort of controls the process.
Absolutely.
Not visa services.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, we take our marching orders from the department or from the PI. So if they say J1, we do a J1. If they say H-1B, we do the H-1B.
Right. And we have a question in the chat. I'm a postdoc in the School of Medicine. I joined on F1 STEM OPT EAD. The department has started my H-1B application sometime in early June. From what I hear, the application hasn't been filed with the USCIS yet. What is the typical process at Duke like for H-1B filing? Is there a site where I can see progress of my application without having to constantly email a person for updates?
Yes. So for you as the postdoc, you don't really have any way to see an update other than contacting the visa services advisor and asking. But whoever you worked with in the department when you were completed the web form for that H-1B, that person has access to our web form system, and they can see the status of your case with their access. You can also check with them to see at what stage your H-1B is at. But you should also always feel comfortable contacting our office if you have questions or concerns about how things are going. And the advisors should always be happy to answer those questions. That being said, H-1Bs, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through before we can actually file it with Homeland Security. There's 2 separate filings with U.S. Department of Labor. There's postings. We have to get the prevailing wage determination. So it's not unusual for it to be a few months before we actually file it with Homeland Security.
That was a good question. Thank you. Other questions for Dylan? All right. Well, Dylan has, I think he said 1,300 new students.
Something like that.
Something like that.
I try not to count because it's too depressing, but.
So we will let Dylan get back to that. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining us, Dylan. We really appreciate you joining us for virtual postdoc.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. And if any of you have, more particular issues that you don't necessarily want to talk about in a public Zoom, you should also feel free to send me an email or give me a call, and we can talk about your particular questions as well. But again, thank you for having me, and I will hope to see you all at some point in our office. Bye.
Thanks so much, Dylan. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.